Hello. Them who are here, which is not anybody yet, but we'll see. Welcome to the Monday coding stream. Give me a second while I fool around with things, because one thing I have to do is I need to not have a picture of myself animatedly talking on the screen while I do this, because otherwise I'll just stare at that and be really distracted. So I switch over to that long enough to see what I'm doing. And holy crud, when I switch the screens around, does OBS throw a lot of bits at the stream. Anyways, here we are. I'm doing my usual moving stuff around and setting up things. Let's switch it to live chat so long as I can. It's you can't always. Sometimes if you get invaded by people who are being problematic, then you can't. But generally I can get away with it. So hey, the thing that I am looking to do today is has to do with what I did yesterday, in several senses of the word. One thing I did yesterday was post tape delay, which I hope people are enjoying. I think it's going over pretty well. Another thing that I did was I got out of the house and I went to a synthesizer meetup, which specifically is a modular synthesizer meetup in a big way. And man, was that fun. That was extremely awesome. And I met a whole bunch of people, and we made a whole bunch of noise, and we pretty much did full-on synthesizer jam. Because for the first time, in my experience anyhow, when doing this, we had cables, hey Bo, by which we could sync together. Like I had some sync outputs that I could send, but also people on entirely the other side of the room were able to string together a bunch of long piggyback modular cables. And for that reason, they were able to send me clock. So it was a giant pile of synthesizer folks. The organizer was like, oh yeah, we're going to do performances for those who want to do them, and everybody will get their turn. That didn't actually end up happening, because what ended up happening was we were all synced together on a common clock, which ended up including literally everybody in the room. And people just started jamming. We just started going, and man, it was the funnest thing ever. It was very much like when Brian Eno went to Germany to jam with Cluster. It was like that, only more beat oriented. And this is a public thing, although you got to RSVP. So people want to hear more about that as going forwards. You can come out and jam with me in these modular synthesizer get-togethers if you can get to Boston, which might be a question for a lot of people. So I'll mention that more as it comes into focus for, like, it could be a monthly thing. Hard to say how that's working out, but this is going to continue to be happening, because not only did I go and jam and we all had a wonderful time, and some of the stuff was being run off of my mixing board, so I was able to balance things so that it didn't get noise complaints from anybody, and so everybody could still be heard. And that was just fun. I've done live sound before. It was very much like that. The point was that, you know, sometimes I was muting all of my voices, but everybody who was doing something could be heard. And this is also a good reason for me to want to maybe upgrade my speakers and things, because that turned out to be a fun pile of kit to put together and work out with. Yeah, it was a modular synthesizer jam, not just a get together, not just a series of performances, but we were all clocked to the same clock. And so we were all capable of jamming like a bunch of guitar players and such. And then by the end of the evening, I let it slip that I was Chris from Airwindows and explained what that meant. That I made open source plugins on a weekly basis, and a bunch of the folks there just lit up like crazy and were very interested indeed. And so one guy who's not programming himself, I also told them all to show up here if they wanted, which they can if they like, was asking for something that was very similar to what I put out last night, TapeDelay. In fact, one of the guys had needed to do a thing with a plugin the previous year, because he apparently was an electronic music label owner, and so he was mixing one of his acts, and he needed to do something in the DAW, and he needed a particular plugin, and it happened to be TapeDelay. I was just putting out the plugin that he needed a year ago, yesterday, and I hope you enjoy playing with it. The other fellow, and I don't remember any of their names yet, but eventually I will remember them. He wanted to know whether you could do this sort of rotating tape head thing that they used to do long ago for pitch shifting voices and things. And here's the deal. He understood the principle about how it worked. It's not that dissimilar to, for instance, what Glitch Shifter does. And I told them about Glitch Shifter. But the principle that you do that with is taking your playback head, basically, and having two playback heads that sort of spin at whatever speed it is that you want, and then you crossfade between them very rapidly. There's also a primitive sampler technique in which you have just one delay tap and it just hard clips between the two positions. And all of this is fairly easily acquired through what I'm doing in TapeDelay, I think. TapeDelay 2 specifically. So what we're maybe doing today, and I'll give it a shot. With a bit of luck, it'll work out. If it doesn't work out, I'll have to think of something else to do for next Sunday, because I do like having something on Sundays. But I think we might play with doing a variation on TapeDelay by just copying everything over again and then playing with that concept. Like, can we take the playback head position and throw a little oscillator on it so that there's a narrow little range in which it can move rather than just the direct playback position. And we can start with the nasty, crude, old sampler version where it's got a gnarly, grungy effect. I was thinking about doing something like that around Glitch Shifter. And if we can get anything happening with this, what it would be is TapeDelay, except for the delay tap, is running a pitch shift of some kind. If we can make that work, then we can try doing two positions and switching between them and then interpolating between them. And if we can do that, we can smooth out the effect, although at the cost of making it much blurrier, because that is the cost of doing this thing. Glitch Shifter managed to not do that at the cost of being much more decentralized time-wise and much more loosely connected to the underlying audio. And if we can do all of those things, we can do what the fellow was asking me, because what he wanted was this. he wanted tape delay but without the pitch changing. And I don't know if that's actually doable per se the way I've got it going. We'll have to see what happens. But the idea was change the speed and then change the pitch so that time would be stretched or contracted without the pitch altering as it went. This is an interest, like if we did this, if I can move the playback head position in the buffer, that would do it. Because the playback head is the one that's scanning rapidly through the whole size of the buffer, that's being written in such a way that if everything is going much faster, then both things are just scanning through very fast, and it's linear interpolating between adjacent samples. So let's see what we can make happen. I should just jump in and start fooling with this stuff. Don't mind me moving my screens and things around. I'm usually fussing with my systems in general whilst doing all this. So let's see. Not on airport. We've got enough. We're connected to power, so that's fine. I think I have hooked my power cable up differently than the way I've been doing, which means absolutely nothing to you. It actually means absolutely nothing to the power cable, but it's one of those MagSafe ones, so you can connect it in either direction. Well, GrooveQ, the thing about that is a fellow asked me for something in this going out to Watertown Synthesizer Jam context. I stayed for hours afterwards hanging out with these guys on a street corner and talking about things. And he was asking about something that was very doable. And it's based on this code. Now, we could probably leave some of this stuff alone and try to fixate on, let me make sure that you can see everything. Yep. So we're dealing with this stuff here. And I can space it out, but the first thing I need to do is make the new project out of my little templates. And it's going to be, I think, let's make it an end-to-end, just because they don't have to make it stereo yet. The VST is going to end up being stereo. John, hey, I guess that's one of the people from yesterday. And let me see now. There's also a fair bit of delay on the stream and chat. So I've never chosen to put it to low latency interaction, although I suppose I could if I wanted. I'm not the only person doing live streams who has just got a lot of chat delay. It's not for any purpose, it just happens to be set up that way unless you specifically tell it to be low latency, and I think if you tell it to be low latency, it's bad quality. Although really we're just looking at like screens and stuff, so I don't think it matters. I'll think about that for next time. For now, audio unit effect, this makes my template, and we're going to call this pitch delay. And I'm going to go through my process of setting something up that builds and can work. That's probably good enough. I'm not sure. Maybe there might be something else that I'm doing with pitch shifters. So pitch delay summarized as PTDL. See, if I duplicate that between two different plugins, then both of them could stop working. And since I have hundreds of plugins, that can become a problem. Now let's do this thing, which is copy over all of these, but we're going to keep what's in the template. Because what's in the template is just all of this stuff. I'm going to keep some of the default things, though. Let's see now, what was that? 6. Because, oh, hang on, go away, breakpoint. Go away, breakpoint. Nobody likes you. I can make it contain mostly everything that was in the previous one, but with a few extra spaces that are already predefined for putting in new things. Now, it's not really TapeDelay 2.1 because I'm thinking I'm probably going to take away some of the stuff out of TapeDelay to replace with this new behavior. TapeDelay has the flutter. I don't think flutter is actually going to be a factor here, so because we already have a pitch shift, which is going to be its own kind of sonic damage, as it were. My hope is I'll get something working by the end of the day. That is my hope. We shall see. This is the new plugin, though, so I can tell you about it. This stuff is all going to be the same as before. Like, these are the same as before. Somebody was asking for more in the way of coherent identifications on things like filters rather than everything going from 0 to 1. Sometimes I can do that, and sometimes I kind of choose not to. There's a lot of my stuff that I want people to set by ear. And this is a somewhat controversial position, which is in one way why I'm hanging on to it. It's also what VST's default to, is 0 to 1 settings. So anything that you do in VST as far as not being a 0 to 1 setting is a manner of going into the code and telling it to do something different. I don't think filter modulation is going to be a thing here. Filters are going to be like TapeDelay in that it's going to incorporate what was already there, but then you'll also be able to pitch bend stuff and then feed it back on itself. If I can make the change thing work, then that will be enough. And let's see, can I take the whole entire kernel? I think I probably can. This is all going to be about the same as it needs to be. So we're going to take everything from here on down. And then we've still got some of these other controls available. We're just not accessing them. And having done this, that should be everything. So let's see if we can build this. It'll take 2 tries. Because if I'm not mistaken, it doesn't know how to do this stuff the first time around. It tries to build the code and then it tries to build the libraries. So we do that once and we do it again, and the second time it's fine. Now let's go and load it up in a program and see what we get. Here's our new thingy. By the way, anybody who is new to this, bear in mind that if stuff starts getting challenging for me, I'll start losing my words. I'll start talking strangely, or what I'm saying is not making any sense because I am trying to think about concepts that are no longer verbal. Pitch delay components, however, this still is. We'll fire up Alien Kittens. By the way, John, if you were remembering what I was saying about the subwoofers, you are now hearing the lavalier mic picking up everything in my room. So this is NS tenants plus the subs. And we test out the new effect, which is not in recent effects because I've not loaded it yet. So it's going to be in P. And this is everything. There you are. So subwoofers, yay. There you have it. So here's the thing, that clearly runs. Now let's start playing with it. Boop. Goodbye, Twisted Wave, back into Xcode. Here's our setup. And we can probably use this vibe speed, which is a factor of, let's see, here's what we're getting from it. Yeah, it's an okay lav. This is a little Sennheiser lav. The reason the lav sounds good is because it's running into an API pre, so it's got a real mic pre, and that's most of it. The signal chain here is the lav going through the little phantom power thing that it has into the API pre, which is loads of gain here. And then that's going into my Motu 16A, and that's it. So the way to get a surprisingly balanced and great sound through a microphone is not to process it more. That's the secret of so many things. In this case, it is the secret of me being able to play audio through my speakers and have it sound good on stream, or reasonably good on stream. It would still be better direct, but I'm not really set up for it. Oh yeah, I swear by API 3124 plus. 4 killer pre's up to any professional standard. And it's pricey, but you get 4 pre's out of it. They're not tube, because the best pre's are actually not tube. The best pre's are like Neve and API. And those are the ones that your old school engineers who have had lots of experience working with all these will be trying to get. And they're often not going to try to get lots of variations on pre's for tone quality purposes. Sometimes they don't even go for variations on pre's for microphone purposes. They'll pick like some kind of Neumann or whatever and their APIs, and they'll record everything with that, and then everything else is done in the mixing. But the capture stage needs to be on point. And there's a lot to be said for that. Like one guy, it's William Whitman. He did the Cyndi Lauper album, the big album. Continues to play bass with her to this day, come to think of it. And he's the one that convinced me to not use SM57s on guitar cabs. Because with certain kinds of sounds, like certain high gain sounds, you can indeed get a really aggressive, forward, defined, clear sound out of exactly the right positioning on a 57, because its special thing is it's a microscope and whatever it's exactly pointed at. So it's very variable. And the positioning means everything with it. Like you can find different places in the cone and isolate those with the 57, which you cannot do with the large diaphragm condenser or a ribbon or anything like that. But the thing is, with anything other than a super high gain tone, and ideally a really good one with a really good amp, you do pretty much just as well putting up a good large diaphragm condenser. And the ones that I like about that are the ones out of, let's see now, Roswell. Roswell Mini K47 is my go-to mic for everything other than sort of my voiceover stuff. and making my plugin videos. I'm using a more expensive Roswell for that one. Roswell's Elam clone is also very expensive, but it does have a very nice slick tone. But as far as just general purpose everything, Roswell Mini K47 is dynamite. That into the API is, I feel, about as good as anybody functionally needs. And everything else is just kind of swank. So yeah. That said, let's get back into this again. We have some of our things are already predefined. So we've got this. I'm now trying to figure out what vibe speed was doing here, because it doesn't seem to be throwing an error of this is unused. Oh no, wait, this is what it does. Yeah, here's what's going on. Our vibrato here is based on a sine wave, and we're already implementing some of this. So our question is, can we make this do a grungy pitch shift on maybe just this code? Maybe we don't even have that much coding to be done. Let's double this up so that we can do it in 2 directions. There. Oh, bug. There we go. Now, if sweep exceeds the range that it's allowed to do, it will go back. But here's the thing. Speed is being managed by this particular code because it's doing both a positive and a negative swing. But what if we only want, like, well, we've got this already, so let's see what happens when we move this around. The Flutter algorithm is doing this, but instead we need to do this. You see what I changed? It's no longer triggering off of the input sample coming in. Instead, we're going to increase it by how much it's set to. And it's also being scaled according to this. That's probably not what we're going to want either. We're probably going to want this range to be bigger. Maybe one thing at a time, though. Or we could throw another one of these controls that we have available in and start fooling with that. So 6, so let's call it 7. And let's take the rest of this stuff off, because this is going to be the range of, we can probably take that off too. People always gripe about the power functions. They're like, oh, it's so much slower. There turns out to be a reason for that, in that and this is typical of computer math. Just like with floating point numbers, you can do things like multiply by 1 or add 0 and have that not give you the same result, even though mathematically it should. And by the same token, multiplication isn't necessarily commutative in computer calculations. The way that it's implemented can give you different results. So when power is not as fast as something times something times something times something times something, it's because the actual power function is making everything be calculated in a word length depth that will handle everything that is there. Whereas if you just multiply, you can have your floating point math throw everything into confusion. Now, it's fair to point out that you don't necessarily care about the supreme accuracy of it all. Yeah, the MediaFire account that I'm using for backups of the plugin downloads also have a bunch of music on them. That said, I'm not really quite sure how convenient that is to get to or whether I've even linked to it, but it does exist. Oh, John, I mentioned how slow the chat response is, especially if I'm thinking about things. So John might have mentioned this half an hour ago. But yeah, Beyer 160s on guitar cabs, it is said that they are very forgiving. This is true. They are very forgiving in that most positions that you place them in are still going to sound good. The ability to zero in on a particular spot on the speaker and have it do exactly what you tell it to is less. And they're also more forgiving than large diaphragm condensers. The sound of large diaphragm condensers on like distorted guitar amps and things is sort of your Beatles style sound. That's what they were doing. I have used MPi in my calculations, and I might try it again depending upon what we get here, because I'm in a position of doing a couple of quick changes. And let's call it a, let's see, do I have overall scale? So this is going to be a number that is 1 if we're at CD sample rate, and at higher rates it's going to be a larger number. So we're going to call vibe depth is going to incorporate overall scale. I'm starting to lose my words a little bit again, but whatever. And let's call it 100 samples just because. And we have parameter 7 to limit that. And we're going to see what kind of depth that gives us, what it's going to be like. Because the next step is to start making another tap into it. And indeed, this might not be relevant to what we're doing, but we're going to see what we have starting off. I feel like this might be going in a direction that's not going to lead me anywhere. I feel like this might not work. I don't exactly know why I think it might not work, but I have a feeling this isn't going to work. And I believe I can tell you why, actually. Let's go to, I don't know, a different track, maybe. We can do some of the sine tests as well, but not really worried about that. And let's see what we get now that we have this be the depth and this be the flutter. Full wet. Or do we have full wet or do we not? Okay, why are you not doing anything? That makes no sense at all. Interesting. That still works. Okay, something's going on here. So this is no longer pitch delay. What I did, changed things in such a way that we're no longer getting the behavior we needed. Let's quit there and try to figure out what happened. I assume you heard what it was doing. So speed should be base speed. This should only be the depth of things. And sweep is only related to this. What did we change here? Speed still here. Depth, param 7. That's fine. Something went wrong. I'm not getting the full range anymore. Let's go in and play with it again. No change, so there's no point in even fooling with that. Yeah, you were welcome for McAdee EQ. It's one of the things I need to do is start running stuff through this EMU sampler so that, like, I have gotten it working in the sense that I can make the sounds that I need. I just don't know how to use it as a sampler, and I'm not likely ever to learn. I found it a little daunting, and I don't really work with samplers. I'm hoping that when I do get to the 1200, which is a much more expensive sampler, but it's also kind of like your Akai workstation with the buttons and things like that, and that might be approachable enough that I would find it amusing. It's like your old MIDI workstation or whatever. I can probably use it to clock some of my sequencer things. Anyways, let's jump back into this. Why was this not doing the thing? So we've got this. It sounds a little bit like there's a tiny delay in here. But I don't hear any significant delay. And then, if we turn up regeneration, that's how quick it is. Maybe I'm redefining something? That sounds like the pitch I was using. And then we got a cool thing happening, but it's not helpful. And then 7th. So 7th should control the rate at which this is doing its thing. There we go, that got it back. So what this is doing is this is having a profound effect on whatever the heck is going on. Let's kill regeneration for a second. So when I turn 7th up, that's supposed to be the range of modulation for this thing, but instead it's forcing the overall time to be this tiny little gap. So why is it doing that? So base speed is how we get our regular gap, our regular time. Vibe speed is how we get, so do I have another vibe depth in here somewhere? What is causing this? So speed is supposed to be base speed. Oh, okay, I know what happened. So here's what happened. Speed equals base speed times vibe depth. I was thinking of vibe depth in terms of like, what is the range of samples this needs to cover, but that's not how speed works. Speed is a floating point number that tells you how big the difference between each new sample is. None of this is a sample delay position. All of this is how fast you go between positions. And I've inadvertently made it so that vibe speed means you can go to an extremely high speed that is basically just shorting out the whole thing completely. So base speed or vibe depth is much larger than it needs to be. It needs to be a much smaller amount because rather than covering a range of 100 samples, it's making it the pitch shift cover a range of 100 samples per sample. Like that's how fast it's going through the cycle, which is not what we need. Let's get rid of that 100. Let's see what we get out of a range of just 1. And of course, if you take vibe depth down to 0, then we're no longer manipulating the overall time. So now this will work. What it will do, we're yet to find out, but it will work in a sense. And when I say work, what that means is this. If I turn flutter up, it's at 0, but this will start speeding it up. This is the speed and this is the depth. So speed, depth. However, we have a problem. That's only vibrato. That's the reason that I made the other one work with input samples so that it randomizes it somewhat. So we've got nothing but a vibrato. It's not a pitch shift. It's only going up and down. I need it to only up or only down. And part of the reason is because this is affecting both the rate that we write to the buffer and the rate that we read from the buffer. And that's a concern. That is a problem. So what we're going to do is figure out some way of making that be different. And I don't mind having it mess with things, but let's first see what happens when we use the thing that was being reminded of me by bmusic. You can say mpi. Now this is going to do the same thing, but instead of covering the full range of double pi, we're going to see only one side of it, and we're going to see what that does. Same audio. I would really like to get something that works out of this if I can today. I'm not sure if I can. We'll find out. So we can hear what it's doing by suddenly cutting it in. If this is just the positive side of the sine waveform, when I cut it in, the overall frequency will be suddenly higher or lower. Actually, no, it's depth I want. Cut it in suddenly and it'll change the pitch. And then down. So that's kind of noisy. So we still don't have anything that actually works as far as what we're trying to produce. This is not a stable operation. This is just offsetting the overall rate that we're stepping through everything. So what we're going to want to do, since we don't have it set up so that it can go so fast that it literally overlaps, like our roughly 2-second sample buffer, at no point do we have the scanning through it going so fast that there's no delay anymore, so we have some space to work with. We've got vibe speed hanging around as other possibilities. And what we need to do is maybe take this away. And this becomes part of the chunk we're looking at for modulating. Because you see, when it does that wavery stuff, it's because we've changed the speed of both the record and the playback as they keep scanning through this buffer. If we change one of the speeds separately rather than having them both be exactly the same rate, and I think we're doing the bounds check twice, so there's that. If we have one of these speeds going at a different rate, they'll desynchronize and eventually overlap and the thing will crash. So what we need to do is have the thing desynchronize and then go back again. So we need a, like, perhaps sweep might actually be the thing we're looking for here, because this is a variable. We're currently using it for this. We don't have to use it for this. If we're not using flutter or vibrato, we don't actually have to deal with making a base speed, but this is fine. It's fine, it's all fine. Here's our filter on the feedback. I'm looking at where we are doing all this. Delay is the position that we're writing and reading and stuff. So essentially, if I'm not mistaken, I'm finding out where I do things, and it's all contained within this little section here. This is everything. Cycle end is the undersampling stuff. That's the dry wet. But everything that I'm doing lives here. So the question becomes, at what point are we writing to the, are we reading, and what point are we writing? And it'll also isolate the filters. That's a filter. That's a filter. They're in the right places, but we don't need to think about them right now. So this is the read head. Input sample equals D pause. All this write stuff we can probably leave alone, and this loop, don't mind me if I freeze up. So all of this is making the thing that we're writing to the output. Input sample plus dpause times feedback, so that's what we're writing to it. Pause equals floor delay, so this is where we're writing to it. Again, it's just going through the buffer, it's scrolling onwards and onwards. Delay is getting smaller each time, and then if it goes less than 0, it wraps. And there's an additional check here. So, let's see now. New sample equals temp sample, so new sample is going to be the thing that we write. We're incrementing the delay, and then this is, oh, I see how this is working, because we're starting with the previous sample from our last position, and then if we're going way faster than one sample per new stuff coming in, we're doing the interpolation. So what that means is we're starting from last time around this whole rigmarole, making the little slant up to the new position, and then prev sample equals new sample, meaning that we are now taking the thing that we just generated, and that's where we start next time we go around. So this is all still write code. And again, that's the filter. So I'm working out where I would position the offset here. Because remember, we got to put this in somewhere. We will have sweep. Sweep will be limited to a maximum of pi and a minimum of 0. So here's one thing we could do. Without doing any of this vibrato depth stuff, let's do something really coarse and crude and see if we can make it work. So we're not necessarily wanting to add because we're going negatively through the buffer. So we basically write, and then we continue to step onwards and start reading what was previously there. So if we were going at 2 seconds of full samples, we'd be going that many. 3 is not nearly as small as all that. So if we want to offset for a little warble that's not part of both taps, we could subtract sweep. It doesn't matter what direction sweep is going at the moment. It doesn't even matter if in fact, it is not signed either. But that's fine. It's just cycling in a little ramp from 0 to pi, or vice versa if we flipped it. So we can use that as a way of doing this. And here's how. We're going to need one of these. But we want it on this. Because we're going to be looking at a situation where it could just break the array. We don't want that. And then we want this. And we're not actually ever using, see, we defined pause up here, so that gets redefined every time we run a cycle of this. So we don't need to worry about this being different all of a sudden. We're just reading the new output coming in, and we filter it after that, but here is going to be the same, but this is not. Let's see what we made. We have a problem, and that's because this is actually a variable. We do need to define it. Can't just use it without defining it. Let's see what kind of demented warble we get now. We can't hear anything, okay? But there's something we can do about that. This is updating. This is working. So what we want to do in our read is not have this be so tiny. So, oh, and we have another variable we can use here too. Vibe depth. Unused, you say? Haha. We will soon have you be used. Vibe depth is the thing that we want, and voila. That should make something happen. And if we can make it happen, then we can see what else we can do with it. Because what we're going to be doing is making two distinct versions of this, probably defining new variables every step of the way and then interpolating between them. But first, so this isn't going that fast, but we have a crackle, but check it out. That's a pitch shift. This is limiting how much of it is being applied. And because we're doing this on input sample, I'm wondering whether it's going to apply to regen. Let's find out. No, it does not apply to regen yet. And I think I know why. This is pitch shifting, and since we are let's do one further thing. See how we've got this here? Let's see what we get, although I'm not at all sure this is going to be right. But that's why we're trying it, to see what happens. There's basically the same code there, but sweep was designed to be a sine wave, and I'm not certain that that's actually correct. So we're going to find out. I got a feeling that maybe sine is not what I want here, because what's going to happen is every little sweep through that position will be a sine shape. So it's essentially pitch shift combined with the bizarre vibrato that's not helpful. Let's see what we got. I suspect we don't want it. Yep. Here's your demented warble. See, because every cycle of the rotating pitch bend tape head thing is going between no offset and full offset. So it's basically FM synth for the wrong place. Let's undo past the previous change. So we do not need the sine thing for any of this, if I'm not mistaken. But we could test, we also don't necessarily need this to be pi, because there's no reason for it. We could also have that be vibe depth. That might be a thing. This is me thinking about what would actually work better. But we are going to want to let sweep go in two directions, and we are still suffering from the fact that we have the harsh crossover. It's going to make that nasty crunchy noise. So vibe speed times base speed, it's related to the filter. We don't actually care about that. Let's simplify all this lots. And by lots, I mean lots. There. Now vibe speed gives us two positions, and I think they're both going way too much, so let's scale it back while we're at it. It's not going to need to go anywhere near as fast as that. And we have our wraparound here. You could, but it might not make any good noises. And we're going to be back to our pitch shift, but in this case, it's going to be the grungy pitch shift, but we'll also be able to shift right down to next to nothing. So that's using the range of the buffer, which is fine. I think range of the buffer is 7th. I think. No, that's just the amount. Yeah, that's just the amount. So what we might do is try to set up our additional tab. So our volume is always going to be this, but our position is going to be different. So this is going to be relating to, let's go back to MPI again. So the deal here is amplitude equals and that'll give us a 0 to 2. So we'll subdivide that as well. Zero to 1. So now if we do this, we are going to have our oscillation changing in amplitude. If our position of this is correct, we may be getting rid of that rattly noise, but it'll be replaced with a tremolo-y noise. It'll be easy to find out. because when we do small amounts of pitch shift, it's not really very far off. And by not really very far off, what I mean is we're not hearing, or I'm not sure whether we're hearing the clicking. Man, seventh is not useful to me. The term is not useful either. Let's call it something else. Let's figure out what we should call it. If I keep calling it seventh, it's going to become increasingly meaningless and distracting. So the stuff that doesn't mean anything is now a space. So there we are, pipe depth. That is a maximum of 2000 at high sample rates or more. That is the width of the space we're using. And that is how. So here's the thing. Our cycling is the same speed throughout, so all this is doing is giving us more range. The total range of the pitch shifting is varying depending upon how much this is set to. Let's exaggerate that somewhat. Like if I went to 10,000, we're still not necessarily going to crash, but we'll be able to see an exaggerated effect on what that is doing currently, because it's doing unhelpful things currently. So let's see. That should make it so that we have a wildly varied amount, and this is what we had previously. Down, up, and up. Now if we increase it even more, we're going through very fast and then it's just cycling. And this is a complete artifact off of. So these are relative to each other to some extent. And that is such a large buffer that it's useless. So here's the deal. We need this to be much more small and confined rather than this enormous thing that's going to make everything be completely desynchronized from the sound coming in. But Flutter will need to be larger for that reason. We're not getting the range. So vibe speed is what we're currently calling Flutter, so let's change that too. And lastly, we do need to get back into our feedback somehow. And that's a bit of a trek because the thing is, so we're doing this the easy way. We haven't updated delay since the end of this. So here's our older delay. And we want to send this new stuff coming out into the feedback. So rather than using input sample plus depause, we want to use input sample plus something else. See, when we didn't update delay except for in the middle of this, we go without the end and come in the beginning, and pause is still floor delay. So this is the same as input sample on the end, except for now it's not, because it's different. We're already using pref sample for something, so we don't want that. That's part of other processing. What we want is, instead of this, we want like output of the whole situation. So let's find a way to make that happen. We'll define a variable to carry it. Oh, these are all long doubles. We'll use a long double for it. Interesting combination of nonsense here. Actually, none of these are actually long doubles. Let's not use a long double for it. There are some kinds of plugins where I'm much more fussy about that, and some kinds where it's like, let's not worry about it. So our regeneration sample, initialize it so things don't crash. But we're not going to want to keep that, are we? So, nope. We're going to do this after we've done our whole combining things together business. Now that we've done this, we do now let's see whether we got our regenerating pitch shift going on, because we should. That should have worked. If it didn't, we'll do something else. Sounds like it's doing it. Yup. We have regeneration. And this is kind of like Shimmer, except for it's not really. Alrighty, basic principle seems to be functioning. What we need to do now is smooth it out, and the regeneration is going to work fine when we have it going. So here's the deal. Do we have this the way it's supposed to be or not? Let's see whether we can make it show all the glitches and only the glitches. And let's localize all this stuff where we want it, because we want 2 of these to read from. They both got to be confined to within the range of the buffer, which is what this does. In fact, we can switch them all onto one line and make C programmers angry at us, just to make it the more obvious that this is the same thing, but for a different value. Some people will write a method for this. Delay minus sweep times vibe depth. So what we're going to want to do is offset one of these. And we're going to offset it by half of pi, most likely. I think that's how that's going to work. Either that or one of them is going to be double pi. And again, tap amplitude A. And we might not even be interested in, well, the thing about this, pan law between these two things might give me a problem. A linear crossfade is definitely going to be, well, but the pan law might, if we offset it just right, it might be exactly what we're looking for. So, wildly speculating across here. And here's what we're going to do. We're already making this calculation, so we can just increase it. That means the sine waves plus 1 equaling 2 go down to 0.5. Because we have 0.5, actually kind of think about it, we don't actually need to update pause at all. So let's not. There, see what we got? We got 2 different positions, and they're both the same so far. Let's double check and make sure, spotted a problem. Let's double check and make sure this still works. Because if this still works, then we are going to do our offsetting. And I feel like maybe this might need more attention here. But for right at the moment, let's see whether this still works. Invalid types. All right. We should use pause because pause is a int. Floor is not an int. Floor is just a convenient way of assigning things to ints. This will be a little more convenient as soon as I don't have this mess here. Nope, 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 nope. That was not the right answer. There we go. Now let's see whether that runs. It should sound exactly the same as it did before. I am going to want that range thing to be within a control, so yes, I do. Trust me. Unless you're absolutely certain. I'd rather use floor just because casting a float to an int, I might as well specify on purpose exactly what's going to happen. You're saying casting to int automatically floors it. I'm like, okay, but I want to do it anyway, just in case somebody's weird implementation does something different. What do we got? Well, that's interesting. We're getting something happening that I'm not expecting. Oh, that's because they have so much regeneration on. Let's not have the regen on. I think I can hear the vibrato, the tremolo. Yeah, and that's because I have this at such a large value, so we don't really need that to be so big. So web depth goes from 10,000 I don't know, like 800 or so. This is all very dependent upon how fast everything is going. Let's play with this a little bit. Or let's make it even more exaggerated. And then crank this up to compensate. Now, what have we got? One thing about it, I think I have successfully isolated the place where the cross isn't. And that's useful because that means I can offset the other half and have them combine, and then there will be very seamless transitions. It's doing a pretty good job. See, that's a much higher pitch. And then we're slowing down. Tighter. Okay, now it's up into that frequency range where it starts to sound like a ring modulator. So this is also tracking closely enough that it can work. A range of 100 samples. At some of these very high... I didn't test the thing I wanted to test. Hang on. Or did I? No, I didn't. Let's make it more extreme still, just so that I can be sure I can hear what's happening. Go back into this. Doing this kind of work, you're going to hear the same audio clip a million, billion, zillion times. So I just pick whichever one. Vibe depth is obviously not big enough. I speed it up and I start losing that again. See, now I'm just hearing the original notes, so that's no good. But the thing I wanted to test was this. Back to the same pitch, but at the very low frequencies. So it's not tracking correctly according to time. And that's a problem. That's something I'm going to have to fix. Time is relevant to base speed, which is always going to be 1, but it might be much larger. So if we're going really fast, we also have to update by base speed. So sweep, let's try. Let's see what we get. We'll divide it by 10 while we're at it. We'll cut that down again. And we'll give ourselves more of a range for effect here. Because vibe depth really needs to be a factor of base speed, honestly. Also, I'm not sure overall scale is relevant to it because this is within the undersampling, remember, so that doesn't matter. Gotta figure these things out. So if vibe depth is scaled to be part of base speed, param 7 is the maximum limit here. As we go up, it'll still be relating to that. Sweep may not. I might be doubling up on this too much. Let's not. Let's see whether that fixed it. Hopefully you understand what it is I'm even trying to fix. I'm doing a very bad job of explaining it because we've gone beyond language again. Like, I should be able to set a pitch offset, and at any delay rate it will be the same pitch offset. now I'm getting no pitch offset at all. That's not true, it's a tiny pitch offset. Back into the numbers. Way too small. Let's make vibe offset be much bigger again. Because vibe depth, oh, I think I know something that might be able to fix that. This kind of stuff really takes it out of me some days. Again, not everybody feels the need to do their next plugin in 2 hours, not counting all the porting. Well, it's doing something. Maybe I just have too big of a range. Okay, we fixed the pitch thing, we just don't have enough of an effect now. Maybe vibe speed needs to get much bigger. Like much bigger. Let's find out. Get much bigger vibe speed. That or vibe depth needs to be bigger to allow this to happen, because it did seem to be running kind of fast. And at those really high frequency settings of vibe depth, where the ring modulator-like effect is a really high pitch, we start hearing the original sound again. So since we're making it a factor of param 7 anyhow, just to gauge the correct size for the thing, let's bump that up too. We're multiplying by base speed. Base speed will go up to like 25 or so, but that doesn't necessarily tell us that much. Our total range here isn't all that. We just made 2 changes, which should give us an enormous pitch change that will be consistent across time settings. Let's see what is true. And this noise, vibe depth will make this noise go higher in pitch, I believe. Needs to slow down. Yep, same pitch. So speed doesn't need to be nearly as big as this. And then we hear the original sounds coming in through the ring modulator effect. Which means vibe depth needs to continue getting bigger and speed can be smaller. Let's knock a 0 off of this and add a 0 to this. And see where we're at. Just remember 10,000 for vibe depth ended up being the one where it was so big that it didn't make any sense anymore. This should take us to a range of like 25,000. Back into the fray. What do we got? and that makes it be 0. And now it's cycling everything backwards this way. I hear the ticking as it goes through its cycles. One thing about it though, this stuff is starting to become functional. Let's knock this down again. Let's throw a power function in this. Oh, we have a problem. -5 times -5 is going to be positive. We'll lose our negative range. So, not so much. There you go. There's our power function that will retain negative numbers. Now, this still seemed to be happening way too fast. I don't get why that would be. So let's see if we just slowed it down a little bit, enough to make it be more reasonable. Beg your pardon, has no effect my ass. Oh. That's why. Times equals. We just did a math thing and didn't assign it to anything. So now it'll have an effect. But I wanted to fool with this a bit. We got sweep, so we want to have sort of sweep A. And sweep B. Add half pi, and then it is never going to be less than 0 because we added something, so and that just wraps around, so we don't need to do it twice. There. Now we have 2 of them. Let's see what happens when we start including this one. Are we going to get our nice little interpolation? I guess there's only one way to find out. Either this did it or I got it wrong somehow. All the other pieces were in place. I have been calculating it with both of the taps this entire time. I just hadn't offsetted them. Now what do we got? We're doing a lot of sine calculations in here, so this is not necessarily going to be an efficient plugin. It's a good reason not to have this be in the original plugin. And not good. Something's gone wrong. Maybe if I move this after all? Like, will that help? I don't know. Let's see if it helped. I'd be a little surprised. That seems like a dumb way to fix it, but we will find out. Am I setting it correctly? Yes, I think I am. I'm supposed to get 2 pi factors offset. That's kind of the idea there. It died. No good. So what's going on here? Well, we can do one thing to find out what's making it happen. We can see whether this is what caused it. So one of these things is failing, I'm not sure which. I only know that it's blowing up and causing mess. I don't like the mess. So we're going to see which one of those things is breaking. And it wasn't that, because that just died. So it's going to be this, and I'm not sure exactly why it is. This shouldn't be giving me problems. It really shouldn't. Let's continue to do that and see whether it still dies, even though it shouldn't be doing anything at this point at all. But if that still dies, then the problem is elsewhere. The problem is elsewhere. It's not in what I'm doing. I'd made another change, and it made something happen. I wonder whether it has to do with this time setting, whether I'm exceeding the range somehow. One of the things I did in the middle of doing all that was increase this. Let's make that not be increased anymore. Because remember, I think I see a potential problem. We've been trying to make the delay range, yeah, I think I see what's happening. We've been trying to make the delay range be not this ring modulator resending that is very fast, but our maximum delay time, or our minimum delay time, is also very fast. I think I'm hitting a problem there. I think I'm hitting a limit where there's only so far it can go, and that's what's causing that. I've just taken it down to 1,000 from 2,000. That might be enough, meaning that I can also put this back and see whether this was fine all along. Now let's see what we got. That is the problem with changing several things at once. And if this works, I start running test tones and things through and see what I get. Interesting. I hear a sputtering still, though. That's a problem. And vibe depth should be the rate at which that's happening. See, that's the speed at which we're cycling the buffer. You can hear it happening now. My question is, am I hearing both of these cyclings? Is it like maximally cycling? And there's a quick way to test that. Reverse these. If that helped, it might have cut out that noise. It won't necessarily have helped. This is a gamble. It's a long shot. Seeing what happened. But that crackly noise is still there. I'm speculating on whether I can shift this. Let's make them be factors of each other. Let's make vibe depth be a factor of vibe speed. Because I'm not finding any usefulness with modulating the rate at which it's going. It's like that's not proving nearly as useful as I thought it was going to. So let's do this bit by bit. This is how we add the power factor. And this is how we don't bother with this stuff anymore. And we probably need to incorporate another number in there. That's fine. And this wants to be fabs. Because there's no use having it be negative numbers. And that does mean it is going to be 0 at very small adjustments, and I'm going to have to see whether that makes horrible effects. I'm grinding over all this stuff. I'm like, ouch. Do I want this big of an effect? Let's find out. Because remember, if I have it go too far, it will crash and die. So I need to set it to something that's not going to crash and die. And I can do that by including that slider after all. So this does nothing now. What do we got? Crash and die. That's what we got. How about now? Crash and die. So that's not great. Let's divide it by 10. Because it's clearly way too much, whatever it is. I also feel like it shouldn't go to 0, that there's bound to be problems with it being 0. Let's make it be at least 1, maybe a bit more. And let's include the other thing in there so that I can do it on the fly. We'll do it live. So if I can get a correct number in that, I can just punch it into the 100. Basically, we're replacing 100 with whatever this ends up being. Am I going too fast for you? I'm going too fast for myself. Oh, look, 16 people. Run away, run away. This is not... Goodbye, Twisted Wave. Forgot to copy that over. It's the dangerous kitchen. If it ain't one coding, it's another. So, can we make it crash and die? Nope. We've divided it too much, now it does nothing. This still works. Oh, no, wait, we haven't divided it too much. I'll tell you what we've done. That sounds super nasty. Okay, yeah, this is the sound goodizer, right. Let's quickly see what... I know something that can make that stop. More bass delay range. How about bass speed is always going to be 1, right? And that was relatively acceptable. How about plus bass speed? How's that? Think that's going to work? I think it might work. Might give us enough to make that flanger effect stop. As I'm hoping that flanger effect can stop. And all of this fooling sort of... We're overlooking the fact that the other thing might be working already. All this fussing over this stuff and the other stuff might have just immediately started working and been fine. So let's test that. Yeah, it still sounds like a flanger. Not great. I'm still hearing the clicking. I don't like the clicking. But at some settings I don't hear it as much. at a very high time setting. So slower delay. Definitely unhappy with how this is working. Yeah, that can't be right. So vibe depth not helping. Well, when we had it at 1000, it crashed and died. Let's see how close we can get to crash and die. That might be the key. Might need to relaunch the program a lot. That's fine, whatever it takes. So this is going to be a guaranteed crash and die. But only at the really high time speed, because of course the time speed is what's causing it to blow up its buffers and die. Yeah, like why am I even doing this if other people do this kind of thing? In part, I suppose it's because I want to do my version of it. We'll see. In part, it's because somebody asked me to. Sometimes that happens. So that was a definite crash and die. How about halfway? How's that grab you? That's a crash and die. How about less than that? How about 0.1, which should be what we had before. Is this crash and die? Not yet, so let's keep sneaking it up. That did it. Around 0.2. What do we got? 0.22 was too much. So what do we got with 0.2? Okay, vibe speed doesn't have to be as big as this. Hello, we're starting to get something. Not only that, I don't hear the fluttering anymore. This is what we might have got there. That's fun. Oh, that sounds super fluttery. I'm not happy with how fluttery that sounds. So here's the thing. Do these correlate in any way? How would I have to scale them to make them correlate? Because the guy wanted this. So 1000 times 0.2 is going to give me a 200. Probably about the most I can hope for from that. We're also adding base speed just because. This is only a test. Remain calm. I see the problem. I'm going to try to get this working just temporarily, but I'm not going to be able to do what the guy wanted me to do. But this might be worth throwing out there just cause. I'm wondering if I can get it to even slightly do the thing the guy wanted me to do. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to be like, nope, nope, not happening, can't do it. See, when I'm too far away from the center, it's not working. Not going to work, can't do it, can't do it. Sorry, man, whoever you were. Ain't happening. See, what was being asked of me was make it so that you can waver it around and then it makes the fabric of time change rather than the pitch. What clients do you refer to? I don't know of any. Let's see, what do we have? Even if we can't get the thing. Oh, it's an alternate conversation. So, okay, got this. So what do we have? Maybe try to tidy some of this stuff up. I think maybe this did as well as it was going to, although I can reverse it again and see what it's like. Let's throw a sine at it and see what we get. I'm going to call it a day pretty soon. Yeah, people are constantly asking for stuff. Just the other week, Bo was asking for Hull. The idea was something that I could go and find, and it was something that I could try to do, and so therefore, and there's other people who code things here, so ask or talk about stuff in chat. It'll either be possible or it will not. And if it is possible, it's not necessarily me doing it. Well, that doesn't sound good. On the other hand, that does sound like a pitch shift. And that no longer sounds like a pitch shift at all. Yeah, that's all messed up. So, given that it is all messed up, this might be a suitable place to test that assumption of mine. Which of these needs to be where? What if we go back to the original arrangement? What do we get then? Impossible question, Aaron. Impossible question. Wow, that sounds even worse. Ooh, it super doesn't like this. It so doesn't like that. What about a higher sign? Are we going to sound a little bit like a something, or are we not going to sound like an anything? I bet I know one of the things that's causing this. Let's just have that be that. Now what do we got? And can we crash the program dead with this? See, this popping is useless, man. This is no good. No, Dolan, you may not have it. The hell. So, can we do this? Fine, unused. I get it. I get it. Maybe I'm just not offsetting stuff quite right. Aha! Hear what it's doing? It's supposed to be putting that pop in the silent part of its cycle. We're getting somewhere. This is starting to teach us what needed to happen in the first place. So, sweep, amplitude, let's go here. That will immediately get the other option. And let's dial in something. Param 7 again. That's going to go between 0 and 1. You can guess what I'm going to do? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. We're using the sweep offset for the one that we can hear, and we're listening to only one. And then we're going to decide how much of pi we need to add to each one, of which we're only listening to sweep offset. Because if we can make this work, we can do the other one where it's exactly halfway around this sign again. And I'm going to bet you anything you care to name, it's not going to be either of the settings that we're currently using. but I bet I can make it turn into a tremolo. Watch. Or maybe not. Gosh. We're not supposed to have this pop on the end, and I'm supposed to be able to give this a different... And it's not going to silence either. That doesn't make any sense. Why is it not going to silence? Yeah, the amplitudes are okay, but this is not going to silence like it should. The hell. Sine sweep offset should be giving me a negative... Oh, hang on. Let's see whether some of my older code had an answer for this. There's a reason why I was doing that 6 instead of 3 stuff. And if you're doing this, you might as well have the numbers. Now let's see what we get. I think I may have been just cycling between 0, 1, and 0 again, never going to the -1. But we're going to find that out right now. And this has been the case this entire time, so that would have something to do with why it's not working. Or rather, why I've never been really satisfied with the ability it has to restrain this problem. Now what do we got? Nailed it. This doesn't seem to do anything, though. That's frustrating. The click is at all random places in the cycle. That makes no sense at all. Yeah, see? Hear that? The hell. The merry hell. Hear it? Hear it? So why the merry hell is it doing this? It's not shifting. It's the same each way. Oh, the problems. So delay minus sweep offset minus vibrato depth. Sine sweep offset plus sweep offset plus 1. So the amplitude is not coping with this properly. So maybe dial in needs to be in here. Oh, wait. So that makes no sense. Let's just ignore it entirely and see what we have and whether it's any different. This is messed up. Sometimes these things just get right on top of me and I end up having a miserable day. Didn't really plan to spend the whole day doing this, but this is where we are. Oh, the thing died completely. Interesting. Now what? Oh, that's what. Simple mistake. I will find things to jack around and play with and get to the bottom of this, though. I feel determined. And there's only so many things that can change in this little, very simple thing. Hey, different pitch. Hear that click? That's where it's cycling. This stuff is still basically okay. The faster we are, the purer the sound is, but that click is still happening. So can we make it not happen that way? Dial in goes from 0 to 1. That's not quite the same, but then we can take pi. Because if you add stuff to sine, you can in theory offset where it's happening. So can we make this actually do the thing? I'm looking for a very neat calculation there, like it's going to be exactly half a pi or a quarter of pi or something like that. Because if I can do that, I can have the other one offset oppositely to it. And falling apart in big chunks. Now what? Now this will do something. Ah, it's in a different place. Loudest point, after the loudest point, before the loudest point. So logically what we want to do is go in here, and we're not getting enough of an effect, so dial in times 2. Same deal as working with the double pi that this other stuff needed. I knew that was useful, let's come up with the double pi number. That gets us into the negative swing. And that's what we need. Ah, what are you doing? That's not what I meant to do. In trying to solve this, I'm getting real scattered, but watch this. Now I need the opposite one to do the same thing. And I'm going to bet that 0.75 is the magic number, because And let's just take a moment and check that oh, blew up and died. It blew up and died so hard it crashed the computer. Wow. No, let's not. That was exciting, though. We got something. So the question becomes, since we seem to be using double pi, how about using single pi for this? Shouldn't have to do that, though. Probably might as well just calculate the number and use that. So, how are we doing? Let's see whether we can make actual sweep work just as well. We're still not using this other stuff, but we got this same calculation in here. So we're listening to only half of this overall equation, and the other stuff is probably set up and ready to go. We'll comment the other one out and listen to the other half of it. Here's the first half of it. Is this still valid? And I haven't fixed the other problem. Is this still valid with signs point to yes. And we die. Went too far. Let's neatly have that and see where we get. Speculating how all of this is working. I could dial these down too. Meh, for now, let's not worry about it. Sometimes the test tones really lead you somewhere because they show you what could be happening. Find this long. Well, it should be exciting because it's dramatic. This is like Kitchen Nightmares. You donkey! Do the cycle of the sine better, you donkey! Oh, that's not supposed to be happening. Well, whose little friend are you? That's not right. This direction it's fine. This direction is catastrophically broken, and I think I know why. Remember how we're multiplying by pi? We've got something in here where if we go the opposite direction, it's not subtracting or adding by 2 pi anymore. So let's go and find out where that is. See, if it's larger than 2 pi, minus 2 pi. But this is how this works. I missed this spot. So it was bouncing into the peak. So now that we've got that sorted out, let's continue. As that seems like, although I'm not entirely happy with the way the vibe speed is working, so let's get rid of this fabs. It's just too subtle towards the center. I don't need that. The thatness of that is not helpful to me right now. Back into the test tones. This time it won't go ping, 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 ping. I said back into the test tones. Thank you. This time it launches. When we've got this all sorted out, I'll play music. Feels like I should have a bigger range of adjustment here. And it's a nasty sputtery noise when you change it, I gotta say. Ugly. Those are some painful noises. So why am I not getting the crazy pitch shifts that I had before? Because it's susceptible to this, and I took it down from 10 to 5. So let's go to 8. And let's make it adjustable. There. Now I can tell it exactly what number I want. And back into the test tones, yay test tones. We are making progress bit by bit. Or we were until we did that, now we're not. Yeah, we were until we did that, now it's dead. What just happened? Is dial-in set to 0? Did I just have that on and I forget to do anything with it? Let's find out. I'm betting that if dial-in is set to 0, we get a big fat nothing. Sure enough. Okay, so full crank. Oh, that's ugly. But that's the interaction between this and the undersampling code. Oh, and it dies. And kills the program. Cool. Seems to launch itself again, though. That's weird. So now let us go, and we've established the maximum range we can do, so no, we died and couldn't come back. That was working a little bit before, so let's relaunch and try again. when it goes completely silent, it is because I have this and I didn't set it to anything. So we'll set it to like up here, make this work, and then fastest delay. When we turn this up to the point where, or not, okay, dies permanently and won't come back. Unhelpful. I'm trying to get something happening here. My hope was that if I set this magic number, let's see, 5, it functioned, but it didn't give me useful sounds. It needs to be a bigger range than this. That's not nearly as much pitch change as I'm supposed to be able to get. Something is very wrong here. Supposed to be able to give me that. So something else is catastrophically wrong that is not what I understand. It's probably because vibe depth is a factor in this analysis. And of course, bass speed is a factor in this analysis because that's how we're getting it to be the same pitch offset. But we're having a hell of a time getting the bass speed and this offset to interact. It was originally able to go to much higher speeds, and now it's not. Let's go back to this. Are we doing two things at once here? No. Let's get this going. I might not have the pitch working even remotely acceptably, but it might be somewhat deceptive. And also we can at least get this modulation nonsense going. So that should be fine. You can hear how tight it is. This is a very, very fast echo, arguably more fast than we need. So that might be one way of manipulating it. Now, if I go up into here and instead we monitor the other one, are we still getting what we need? Well, that's not what we need. Yikes. Something's wrong. That hurt my ears. Oh, that's what. Now let's try it. That's based on replacing. Now let's see what we got. Just for laughs, since this does seem to be working, let's get rid of some of this. And by this I mean this. Can you guess what I'm going to try to get rid of? The depth doesn't always have to be so big. Or maybe it does, but we'll find out, won't we? We'll find out by trying it and seeing what this now does. That might have had a factor into why it was blowing up rather than letting me do high frequencies. We shall see. This could also cause a horrible mess. That algorithm super doesn't sound that nice on sine waves, but that's kind of expected. Since we changed that, let's change this. Does that make us blow up or not? Because that was enough of a difference that it might have been the distinction. Can I get a blow up, or can I get a pitch that does what I want? We can get a blow up. One of my things had to be set to a 7.5, so let's, or 0.75, so let's see what we get out of a 7.5. Maybe that's the magic number for non-blowy uppy. It went to a nice high pitch before it exploded. Freak 5 speed, there we go. And that died. And so did that. I should be able to getting more of a range on this. This makes no damn sense. I'm thinking it's just my... Like, there's only so many cycles of increasing pitch that I can get doing this way because it's flipping out. Anywho, without fixing that, let's have a look at this. We've established that both of these, which are theoretically offset exactly, are capable of working. So now, let's at least hear what it's supposed to sound like as a pitch bend. On the sine wave that is the bane of my existence. And let's not die. A little bit of wavering. But this is the two things. And it dies with that too. Boy, I'm so sick of this. This is making me mad. Let's force it to behave. 20 base speed max. Because there's a limit to how far I can push it. Me pushing it means a real limitation to how far I can push it. So it can never be as fast of a delay. Which this seems like it shouldn't be. Am frustrated. Am very frustrated. Let's go back to 10 here. No, not 1p. I'm going to go back to the music pretty soon because at least that'll sound nice. This sine wave stuff is the ultimate in impolitely causing it to crash without being helpful. And goodbye. How about 6? How's 6 grab you? This amount of pitch bend limitation is insane. Maybe this is the number that's causing me problems. Let's go back to 10 here, but we're chopping down this depth enormously. And the sine wave will show us whether we're taking it in a horrible direction or not. It feels like if it's doing a section that large, then it doesn't need to be doing a section that large. The sine wave will tell us. That's not a very big adjustment range. That's like a semitone. It's terrible. I better know why, though. As we scale the one, we have to also scale the other. If I set this to vibe speed times 100, I can probably make it die again. So we're going to test that. Oh, John, you're the one who asked for this. Well, I've already not given you what you asked for, so I'm sorry too. But this is going to go to some interesting places, and we haven't even heard audio through it yet. We've just heard sine waves for the last 3 hours, or 2 hours. So, pitch delay, maximum time, which I have dialed back just a hair. I should be able to make it crash and die. Well, I can get an octave out of it. Oh, there we go. Boom. And this is going to be the equivalent of exactly an octave up. Is that exactly 0.25? Do we have a magic number? Weird. Okay, it's not exactly 0.25. Still, we can try 7.5. Because one thing we have got back is we have got back our ability to do crazy pitches. And that's worth doing. In some ways that's worth celebrating, because it was really frustrating not having that on tap. We can do the low sine for other issues and other problems. Mostly I wanted to see whether I can... not too much. Oh, let's be crazy and throw the golden ratio in. 0.618. So, no, but 61.8 is what I'm going to want. That'd be so incredibly stupid if it turns out to be the actual number that I want. But, hey, sometimes it just gets that silly. We are going to play music through this before too long. I think at the point I do that, I'll call it a day. And it bums me out that vibe speed isn't able to not be scrunchy, but... So we can get 0 and we can get negative. Cool. It makes nasty noises, but we're not crashing. There we go. That functions in some kind of way. Let's call web speed pitch. It might be. We got to run audio through it. The depth we're now not using again. This being literally called pitch delay. And spending extra hours and all this, but hey. Let's throw a snare drum at it. So nice little echo, maximum regeneration, wideness of frequency, and the pitch is going up. And dry and the echoes. That sounds like a pitch delay to me. Let's make it do less. Too subtle. Yeah. It does kind of fade out. We're losing regeneration on this, and that's, I bet I know why that is. It's because the interpolation. So let's experimentally add a thing to it. And we'll go back to 7. And that'll give us our magic. Well, the reset button is turn the feedback back off. And this should give us our runaway feedback setting. So you just have to behave yourself with it. And I do not think the feedback needs to be that power factor. That's just making it so that the small feedback numbers are all small feedback numbers. We don't need that, so let's not have it. So 7 plus 2. You'll have more range of adjustment around it. I'm not sure why I had it that way, but yeah. Oh, I think I had it that way because I figured that for the actual delay, you don't want to be drowning in echoes all the time, so having more range around the subtleness is useful. But for this, half the fun is the feedback. So let's see what we got. Pitch delay. Full regen. Little time in there. What do we got? Needs more. And more. How odd. Maybe if the pitch is more normal? More. That's definitely weird. On the other hand, it is giving me what I asked for. Yeah, it's literally an additional 1. That's a lot. That's kind of a lot. So let's go back in there and fool with it some more. Feedback times 2, which is the same as what we had before. Crank that up all the way. This no longer does anything. Those are some grungy noises, but got something going on. Here, full wet. Freaky. More. We need more regeneration. It needs to be able to blow up and explode. So 2.5. All right, now let's get into some madness. Oh, lost it. But we're coming back. I think I can put in a thing where I start scaling this back. Based on how loud the feedback is. Let's try it. So let's crank it up even more. 3. Minus fabs. And what we're going to want is regen sample. And that's not going to be very consistent because we're essentially only checking regen sample every sample buffer, but it is going to be there and it is going to be a large number if it's a thing. If there's no sound, you get full regeneration. If it's loud like this echoey madness, then that will play some role towards dialing it back, and that's a feedback controller. So there we got it. We got get param 2, we got even more feedback on tap, but every time we have a sample buffer, we're checking to see whether the regen sample happens to be something large. If it is, it starts to dial things back. Let's get playing with this madness. And I think this is starting to shape up into something that I can put out next week and people will actually enjoy. Let's find out if we can enjoy it right now. too much resonance. Ooh, it kind of died. I bet I know why. It's that functionality. It worked. What do we got? Okay, now that's getting loud. I think 3 is too much. It's really not dialing that back nearly as much as I would want. And that's kind of intense. Maybe this is not as large a number as I thought it was. Regen sample is what we're getting in. So that's kind of puzzling. That should work. Let's just dial it back from the 3 to something a little saner. Not necessarily a lot saner, just a little saner. I think I was doing 2.5, so we'll try 2.4 and see whether stuff gets wildly out of hand. Was making some good gnarly noises, though, I must say. Now, let's see. So, right now, we're actually attempting for more blowy epi, but in a special way. We've got just enough regen to do something. Oh, where are we going with this? It's restricting itself a tiny bit. See what the meters are doing? And this is with no new sound coming in, so there's that. Pitch is still real crunchy. Good. I'm frightening cats. Yeah, this is the thing. Now we're going to explode, peak out too much. It's staying almost controllable. And if you do grab regen, it's a nice way to stop it from getting too one-handled. Okay, this is a toy. This is a definite toy. got that nice edge of resonance thing going on. This is with no sound coming in, so that's cool. Yeah, we have possibilities here. I'm still not happy about the way that moving the pitch control makes scrunchy noises, but that's also how we get new sounds coming in, so there's that, I guess. And now, let us make it play on some sounds. As in, oh, I don't know, Alien Kittens or something. Or the original one we started with. Okay, that's slow. Full regen. That's so good. Let's do it on the drums. And the drums are actually the 96K drums, so we get to hear kind of for the first time how this is all going to work with the undersampling. Set this way, I am probably doing little bits of negative sound. Oh, a verge of feedback. We got some bass happening. That's coming from the regen. bass. Here's your bass. Okay, this took longer than desired, but all things considered, yeah, we can live with this. Yeah, I think this is it. This is the new plugin, Pitch Delay. Might not be like anything else out there, but yeah, we're good. Yeah, like, this is a drum, but we also have this madness going on just inside the drum track because we're doing this. Kind of cool. Want to take the regen and boost a little bit more of it? I think we should take the regen and boost a little bit more of it. Let's scale everything up by a hair. Instead of 2.4 minus absolute regen sample, let's go the full 3 minus 1.5. Or, no, let's be even more intense, 2. So feedback is param2, which goes from 0 to 1. It'll go all the way to 3, but it's subtracting the what's in the feedback buffer every time you sample it anyhow, times 2 for more effectiveness. And let's throw that into our drums and see what happens. All the previous stuff that we did should still be possible, but we will see whether this is just the final word and over the top, and whether it blows up with volume or not, because that's what the regen control is meant to do. Hey, it dialed itself back. Can you see the meters there? Well, you can't now. Now you can. So that's the max regen. loud. Hey, it's dialing itself back pretty good. These sounds are making me laugh, which is good. It's been a hard day at work. So this is what you were talking about when you say it was better before. Somewhat less regen. And the time is not changing the pitch stuff. Or how about the David Bowie breaking glass? Classic Bowie album effect. Increase it enough and you get a sort of weird, deep resonant thing. Speaking of resonant, let's make it resonant. Because that still applies. So we can narrow the bandwidth. And that will have some effect on restraining the amount of regeneration. That sounds big. It sounds electro as all hell. Lean a little more into the highs, such as they are. See, this is a pitch shift down into almost nothingness. And there we go. Oh my God, whoa. That's pretty messed up, I gotta say. That just happened. Wait, one more thing and then I'm done. Check this out. Effect stacks this. And two, can you guess where we're going with this? Mackety. Yup. All the maggoty crank. And there's just plain maggoty. And there's my regular drums. I think we're done. John, if you're still there, don't be sorry. This was hilarious. It was hard, and that's just because I ran into a bunch of silly problems and stuff. But I feel like even though the outcome wasn't exactly what I wanted or exactly what you asked for, this is enough fun for everybody. So thank you very much. And I will talk to you folks later, because we're done for the day. Bye-bye.